Geek Out! Hey, welcome to another installment of Geek Out to be determined. As we determined last week, we're just going to do I'm just going to rename the series. It's not even to be determined anymore because we're doing like every single James Bond movie.
It's going to be a long time.
Including Never Say Never Again, which I'm still...
the best. Best theme song.
Hashtag Basinger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're continuing our...
That was the year of the most out-of-shape James Bonds ever.
Well, here's the thing. I think, and we'll talk about this more when we get to 1983, I think Sean Connery is in better shape in Never Say Never Again than he is in Diamonds Are Forever. Because he's like fat Connery in Diamonds
He's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, just give me my 3 million pounds. And I'll weigh 3 million pounds. Yeah. But no, we're continuing. So our deep dive of the James Bond films with From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
Yay! Is this every dad's favorite James? Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
It's got to be.
That's kind of depressing to me. I mean,
do you have children?
not that I know of. I mean,
if your favorite film in the series is From Russia with Love and you don't have children, you got children running around somewhere because you're a dad.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I learned something new.
It's just
every day.
Science.
Yeah. So 1963, directed by Terrence Young, the guy that directed Dr. No. This was apparently John F. Kennedy's favorite nonfiction book, which is what basically opened American audiences to James Bond as a literary character, and then eventually into a cinematic character. The last movie, John F. K.
Yeah.
I only
fuck are you, man?
Yeah.
How many John F's are there, though? I mean, let's be real.
I'm John F.
The last film I saw.
Yeah, technically, Jake is a John F.
I'm a John F.
Yeah, John Frederick, not John Fitzgerald, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like we go and say like, "Hey, John F., how's it going?" I mean, I feel like there's a lead in there, and you know where that one's going.
I am also the president.
I hope that would be an improvement. Yeah.
God. Yeah.
And we get political, but I don't really give a shit. It's
a MI6.
Yeah. This is we're talking about British things on this program.
Right.
But yeah, apparently the last movie that JFK saw was before he flies out to Dallas.
Jesus.
Because that trip doesn't go well.
There's better possible endings.
Yeah. But yeah, From Russia with Love. Let's Garrett, while we got you on, so for our listeners at home, my old college roommate Garrett is joining Jake and Rich and I. I feel like at least once a year, and Rich was present to a couple of these too, we would watch every single fucking James Bond movie except for Never Say Never Again. Despite the Basinger presence.
Yeah.
And when you say we, I mean, we would watch all of them except for Never Say Never Again and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but we'll get to that one later.
Yeah. Also, for every episode, are we going to add a new person? So by the end, it's just like fucking pandemonium.
By the end, we'll be able to cast our own Bond film.
We're talking about SPECTRE and just everyone shouting and it's just feedback.
But I like it. But
yeah. Welcome to it's a 30-minute intro.
Yeah. The Day of the Dead sequence.
I'm for it. Why not?
Why not? Fuck it. But while we got you on, Garrett, is there anything, since you weren't on last time, is there anything you want to say about Dr. No?
I mean, not really. It's a great film. It's solid, but it's mostly notable for its lead-in to From Russia with Love, which apparently I and all the other dads out there have a lot to teach you young whippersnappers about what good movies are. So,
which isn't to say like From Russia with Love was never my favorite James Bond movie, but which isn't to say that I don't like it a lot. It's certainly top 5 status.
Yes.
Where would you rank it, Jake?
Well, as you know, I mean, my ranking is just like by year, like how it's released. But it'd be like 4th.
Okay. Yeah.
On my 5. Maybe 5. No, it's 5th.
Okay.
It's 5th.
It's 5th.
Yeah.
You just remembered Moonraker?
Oh, yeah. Well, you were there for Moonraker.
I was there for Moonraker.
That's right. We'll save that for another time. Yeah. But, you were definitely there for Moonraker. That was a fun one. Yeah. But yeah, it's 5th. What
makes From Russia with Love the favorite of you two guys? Either can jump in.
Sure, yeah. I mean, to me, it's such a there's a lot of stuff in the rest of the Bond canon where things go crazy. Starting with Goldfinger and moving forward. I mean, you start to have these crazy over the top villains with these insane plots and the schemes and everything, and they're great, they're wonderful. don't get me wrong, but there's an extent to which From Russia with Love succeeds and lives and dies on James Bond and this very, compared to the rest of the series, a very straightforward espionage plot with a kind of classic MacGuffin going. So it's not as much classic Bond as it is just classic filmmaking in a way that you don't see. You don't see it in the exact same way in the rest of the series for a lot of them until I think Casino Royale.
I feel like that's a
I would agree with that. Yeah. Before Casino came out and then Skyfall, I always kind of fell back on From Russia with Love as my favorite Bond movie. It's definitely the grittiest that you see until Dalton comes along, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's very much, like you said, an espionage movie. It's very much a movie that's kind of, there's none of the hokey gadgets that are there. It's kind of they're things that you could believe a spy would have. Like a knife in a briefcase, or poison in a briefcase, things like that. Like those are things that you kind of like. I remember seeing in history museums when I was a kid. And from a filmmaking standpoint, the whole Quint, what the fuck's his name? Nash.
Red Grant.
Yeah, he steals the show.
Yeah.
I mean, the scenes from when he shows up and then on the train and constantly calling him old man, and then even the little thing where James goes, red wine and fish, I should have figured that one out. Like, even just the little things, I think, really add up and make it kind of like one of the more complete films in the series. And from a traditional Bond standpoint, I mean, Daniela Bianchi is perfect eye candy.
Oh yeah.
Apparently hand selected by Connery too.
Yeah. And then from a what the hell goes on with filming and accidental, I guess, standpoint, is this movie nearly killed the director and the actor at the same time, because they were trying to save money and they got less experienced helicopter pilots, and the helicopter got too close to Connery and nearly chopped his head off. And when the guy overcorrected, the helicopter ended up going in the river, and the director got trapped underneath it in an air bubble, all in the span of like 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and then he was right back to directing as soon as they pulled him out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Stay on schedule.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100% with the filmmaking aspect. I think when people talk about, because, James Bond, because there's been so many and there's been so many opportunities for things, I think at certain times has taken on kind of a less than pleasing kind of look by like critics or filmmakers. They kind of stick their nose up at it. But I think a lot of times when they talk about, like, especially directors talk about great filmmaking in a Bond movie, like From Russia with, like, Goldfinger might be like the standard for a James Bond movie in terms of like introducing all those tropes, the cold open and whatnot, and the gadgets and the girls. But From Russia with Love is the one they point to as a great film in the James Bond series. Yeah,
we don't even technically get the title track until that one dude's listening to it on the radio while like Connery's humping, but then you don't get it again until like the end credits.
Yeah,
because you get the weird like 1963 like projected on the belly dancer.
Yeah,
for the cold, or for the opening title sequence. So yeah, they still haven't
must be accounted for.
Yeah. They still haven't quite figured out the formula, but we get Q.
We get Q
for the first time. Good old Desmond Llewellyn, who wanted to portray, who wanted to be a little, because he was a Welsh actor, he wanted to portray it based off his father, but Terrence Young is like, no, you're a stuffy bureaucrat. Be a stuffy bureaucrat. And it's like probably, I feel like this is the film where we see Q get along with Bond, sorry, at least Connery Bond.
Connery Bond, yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that even though the formula hasn't been set yet, we're starting to see more of it. We don't have the three blind mice. We don't have the dots.
Oh God, Three Blind Mice. If only every Bond movie had a fucking reference to Three Blind Mice.
How would that feel natural?
Just in the back, by the end, someone walks on screen during the middle of like a sex scene and goes, "Three blind mice," and then walks off.
Three blind mice in the Quantum of Solace fight in the middle of the De Las Tunas Desert Hotel.
Just three mice walk by. He's like, "Oh, three blind mice."
As the building burns
Yeah,
around him.
yeah. The what's his face with the axe in his foot?
It's like,
3 by mice. Drink this oil.
Have you? Okay, so you mentioned Daniela Benaki. I think she was like Miss World in like 1962.
Miss World.
Yeah, she represented Italy. So during the height of Bond mania in like the 60s, which I guess of which this film came out, Sean Connery has a brother that looks a lot like him called Neil Connery.
I don't know. That's a hilarious name.
The lesser known Connery.
Like it would be Neil.
Yeah, totally. Not something like Scott. That's too on the nose. Scott, a Scottish guy named Scott
Connery.
How many Scottish people
like
actually
Stephen
have?
Baldwin.
Yeah. So he's
Hang on, no. Neil Connery is like Sean Connery with the facial hair of the guy from of James Lipton, the guy from Inside the Actors Studio.
He's got the Van
Like I
Dyke.
just googled this. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like if Sean Connery was wearing a disguise,
Yeah.
it would be Neil Connery.
Yeah.
And
No. It's like if Sean Connery and Neil Lipton got like Cable and
Yeah.
Deadpool body slide by 2 and like got shoved together. That's Neil Connery. If Sean Connery and James Lipton did that.
Yeah. In 1967, they put out a film starring Neil Connery called OK Connery, or also known as like Kid Brother 007, something like that. Very like exploitation, like James Bond exploitation, featuring a fucking and like Lois Maxwell, Miss Moneypenny's in that movie too, which makes it even weirder. But the Bond chick in OK Connery is Daniela Benaki. So she got a smooch 2 Connery brothers.
Lucky her.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. No, she was like my first favorite Bond girl.
Really, not Ursula Andress.
No.
Huh.
Also, I mean, I didn't see Dr. No till later down the line. Like I saw From Russia with Love earlier.
But I feel like even not seeing Dr. No, you know.
It's just that was too easy. Like I loved her in From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
She's not my favorite of all time, but she was like the first one where I was like, that's my Bond girl.
Yeah. As we stare wistfully into the distance.
Yeah.
I just imagine you guys just like staring at each other saying that,
Well,
like
that's-
eye contact.
That's fair. Actually it's a fair statement.
You're not inaccurate in that.
Sam, who's your favorite Bond girl? I call him up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
You just like look down
Andress
from
is
the bed and you're like, hey,
Yeah. Lois Childs.
Stop calling me. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. But speaking of Bond girls, how about Lot Lenya as Rosa Klebb?
Oh, no, that's my favorite Bond girl, Rosa Klebb. Oh, what? Yeah. That's the best fucking weapon of all time.
And you were saying it was part of the Bond villain exhibit at the Spy Museum, Rich?
So yeah, they had her actual foot there, and it was a weapon, or not her foot, her shoe.
That would have been horrific.
Really weird. But yeah, no, it was part of the exhibit, and it was an actual KGB weapon. They used to have poison knives outfitted on a lot of things. It would be shoes, umbrellas were a big one.
Yeah, I've heard about the umbrellas.
Yeah, because the KGB agent killed like a famous scientist on some bridge with the just poking him with a poison umbrella.
Yeah,
knife.
I had when I was like in elementary school, like the book fair would come around, and that was like the height of my James Bond love, like when it was like really like starting out. And me and one of my buddies bought like a book on spy stuff, and one of them was they had a section about like I think that exact thing with the umbrella tip, and he'd walk by and just bump, you just bump into him like, oh, sorry, whatever, a little pinprick, you barely wouldn't even feel it, and then he was dead.
In the book, like Connery or not Connery, Connery's in the book. In the book, Bond actually it ends on a cliffhanger. He gets poisoned by Rosa Klebb, and I think it was Entertainment Weekly that called Lot Lenya's Rosa Klebb one of the best Bond girls of all time because of all the psychosexual elements. And I was like, blow it out your ass.
Jesus Christ.
Blow it out your ass. Put Christmas Jones on that list. I don't mind.
Yeah.
They said Christmas only comes once a year. Maybe the best line Brosnan ever had. Maybe.
Oh, it's a classic.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about this movie too, and maybe it's like broccoli and broccoli
Saltzman?
and Salazar
Or
or
Saltzman, yeah.
Salzer said that this was their favorite movie that they made together. And this is like from the book to the movie, they changed up the plot because of all the Cold War stuff going on during the time. It was at the peak, the Cuban Missile Crisis, so they kind of changed the plot up a little bit.
Yeah, it's not Spectre in the book.
Yeah, it's
Smersh.
Smersh, and the portrayal of Bond in From Russia with Love was much more akin to the guy that you would read in the book than you saw in Dr. No or Goldfinger or Thunderball or any of the other movies. Basically, until you got to Casino Royale.
Well, I think in the books, Spectre only shows up in like 4 of the books. He's usually going up against either free agents or Smersh.
Yeah.
And the only Bond film that directly references, I don't even know if direct is the right, but that references Smersh is The Living Daylights with the Smiet Spionum, which is Russision for death to spies.
No, they
isn't
reference Smersh on the train.
Oh, that's
because,
right.
Rosa Klebb she's a defector,
Smersh.
isn't she?
Oh, was she Smersh before she
defects to Spectre?
Spectre.
Ah. Well, there you have it.
Yeah, she's like, what a dumb name.
Smersh.
I'm going to Spectre.
Yeah. One S acronym for another.
Yeah. Schmersh. I am an agent of Smersh.
There's got to be like a cooler Russian way to pronounce that, right?
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
you're asking the wrong guy. Yeah, let me dive into my Russian.
Yeah. But, I mean, what are some of the more memorable set pieces for this? I mean, clearly, like, we've mentioned Rosa Klebb with the boot knife. Red, you were mentioning Red Grant. And I mean, I feel like that fist fight, even like almost 55 years later,
the
still,
train?
Yeah, still holds up.
That's one of the great Bond fights of all time. Like that, we're talking about like early things setting the standard for future Bond movies. The train sequence.
How many Bond films have a train sequence because of
so many? I mean, I jumped to Live and Let Die, which is not as good, obviously, but it's a train sequence. Spectre has a train sequence.
Spy Who Loved Me.
The Spy Who Loved Me,
Yep.
of course. Also,
Goldfinger, or not Goldfinger, GoldenEye.
Yeah,
when they get locked in the with the bomb.
That's right.
There.
That's right, with the laser watch and all that.
Yep.
Classic. Yeah. But also the cold open, or the open with you think it's Bond's being killed, by Mr. Grant.
And they had to add a mustache to the double because without the mustache, he looked like Connery.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for what are some of the more memorable set pieces for you guys with this one?
I mean, I don't know about set pieces, but in general, I love and going back a little bit, talking about, the Cold War stuff going on, all the stuff involving the Istanbul consulate, Kerem Bey, it's just, it's fantastic. The gypsy settlement, action scene is just, it's almost out of place in the film because it's kind of the first inkling of the crazy stuff you're going to get later in the Bond series, but it is it's a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening from front to back even before it gets attacked. So I mean, it's great. Yeah,
he's watching 2 chicks try to kill each other, and then he ends up having like a threesome with the 2 chicks.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because it's Bond. That's what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, like when you're saying what set pieces really stand out. This movie is so slow-paced compared to, the majority of the other Bonds. I mean, it's very deliberate in the way that this movie takes place. That it's not like you have a lot of quick, I guess, eye-grabbing things that really stand out to me, because the movie was so much more about the characters than it was about the set pieces, or like we said a couple on our last one about how they're in the Caribbean and you're seeing colors you've never really seen before. To me, I always kind of viewed this movie more about the characters and watching Bond operate completely and wholly as a spy, more so than this elaborate Hollywood production.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what we were, I think, basically saying for the entire. If there's one underlying thread in there, this is as cloak and dagger as it gets for the franchise. Though, for me, you were mentioning the gypsy fight being one of the more audacious things that almost feels out of place. For me, one of the most audacious things that feels out of place is Spectre Island. Like, he literally calls it fucking Spectre Island. He's like, welcome to Spectre Island, as, like, people, like, have target practice with, like, live men jumping around in pajamas.
Yeah.
That, for me, was...
beating him up with brass knuckles in the stomach.
Yeah, while he's getting, like, a convenient, like, massage from a big busty woman.
Yeah.
Yep.
The dream.
Really? Truly. Including the brass knuckles.
Yeah, the brass knuckles is what makes it the dream.
That's the punctuation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome to Geek Out, Garrett. This is how we do it.
Also, what is it? The big billboard with the mouth?
Oh.
That's a striking visual.
Man.
Yeah.
Call me.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. That was the only Ion film that wasn't a James Bond film. With Anita Ekberg, who was married to the guy that plays Felix Leiter in Thunderball, Rick Van Nutter.
Great name.
That is a phenomenal name. Much more creative than Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah. What if it was Agent Nutter of Schmiersch?
I mean, I think, like, all the...
We are Schmiersch. Oh, yeah? We got our own island. We're Spectre.
Yeah.
Schmiersch has a parking garage.
How easy did they get, like, taken... Like, do the Spectre boats get taken out?
Non-point.
It's like almost like a... And the guy that plays General Gogol is the head of Spectre Island.
Yeah.
So... They just, like, recast him after his hair goes white. They're like, you look Russian now.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Brother.
I mean, but yeah, Spectre Island for me never quite did it. We see Blofeld for the first time, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Played by Anthony Dawson, who plays Professor Dent in Dr. No. Though he's voiced by some other fuck.
Yeah, some other fuck. Classic.
I mean, the idea, the white cat. Very, very Inspector Gadget. Before Inspector Gadget.
Yes, exactly. Yes, James Bond took inspiration from a cartoon show that hasn't started yet.
Yeah, for another, like, 25 years.
Yeah.
Next time, Gadget.
Yeah.
Next time. I mean, that's one of the more... If there's anything that this adds to the mythos, I would say it would be Blofeld.
Yeah.
I mean, as a standalone film, it's fantastic. But, yeah, this is where you get...
In terms, I think, because so much of this series is going to be the building up and adding on and creating to the mythos and whatnot. And, he's, like, the guy.
Yeah.
Is he tainted a bit?
For me, after in a post-Spectre
world?
Yes.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, because I love Christoph Waltz and I love Blofeld, but he's tainted.
Can you explain that, Sam?
Well, okay, all right. And we can revisit this in Spectre as well, but why the fuck is Blofeld as of Spectre James Bond's surrogate brother?
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Somebody played a little bit too much Metal Gear Solid 4.
Or forgot that Austin Powers was supposed to be a farce.
Yeah.
Either or both. Yeah.
That's just Hollywood being Hollywood now.
It doesn't all have to be connected, man. Yeah. I liked it better when he was just some guy and Bond was just a fly in the ointment.
The one thing is like they got a little too much about his personal life, and I never gave a shit about like how he grew up, where he grew up,
how he learned to ski.
Yeah.
Which he never. He makes a point to be like he taught James how to ski. We don't see.
Oh, great!
We don't see him ski in that movie.
Where they get to ski together with like that bullshit, make him look younger with like a young Christoph Waltz and Daniel Craig.
That was a throwback to one of the short stories because Oberhauser was mentioned in, I want to say maybe the Octopussy short stories originally, and they made a big deal about that for a couple pages. It wasn't even one of the full. He wasn't even one of the full books, I don't believe.
No, I don't think so either.
But the whole skiing thing was. I remember that standing out in one of the short stories that I read.
Yeah. See, and here I thought they were just foreshadowing a remake of For Your Eyes Only.
That's the one. So I feel like the biggest point of contention between me and Garrett, if not On Her Majesty's Secret Service, would be our perception of For Your Eyes Only. Because you don't like... That's, for me, that is potentially the greatest Roger Moore Bond film. I guess just greatest Roger Moore film, period, because what else am I going to say? Cannonball Run?
Moonraker.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Moonraker's your favorite, but, like, For Your Eyes Only, I remember you are not a fan.
No, not at all.
I like when he kicks that motherfucker off the cliff with the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Like he like runs upstairs. He's like, and like the car's like spinning up, and then he gets to the top, and he's just like, nope, and he shoots at him, and
He
the guy
wounds him, yeah.
he throws the dove, the little white.
And originally Roger Moore was like, it's the weight of the pin that will put the car over. And then
I
the
don't want to
director,
hear that shit.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he's like, my Bond isn't that cold-hearted. And the director...
Dude, in Spy Who Loved Me, he like smacks the tie away from a little fat man who falls to his death. There's no pins there, buddy. That was all you.
What's the most cold-blooded thing that James... the hardest thing for me to see in From Russia with Love, every time I watch it, is when he, like, knocks around Tatiana.
Yeah,
That's always a hard scene for me to watch.
agreed.
Yeah.
Like,
I always kind of feel bad for Sylvia Trench in that movie, too.
Sylvia Trench? Why? Because they totally get to,
That was her last go-round.
Oh, well, sure, yeah. Okay.
Man down, pour one out.
Yeah. She was supposed to be a recurring character, but I think, since they got a new director and everything, not to mention I think they wanted to free up Bond even more, even though like they're getting into the swinging 60s. But I guess he can't have any casual side chicks back in merry old England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be gentlemanly.
Because what he's doing is so much better.
Yeah. I kill, I fuck.
What does he say to Tatiana when she said, he's like, oh, you're beautiful, and she says,
my mouth is too small?
Except my mouth is too big, and he goes, no, it's perfect, especially for me, or something like that.
Well, she's, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Schmirsch.
They really kind of let him off the rails in this one.
Yeah.
Also, he's got like the shitty ass like back scar.
Oh, yeah. This shitty ass back scar.
Just like your photograph. And she talks about the mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
that makes her think of his penis. I'm just gonna say it.
That's
Yeah.
not the last.
To me day and night in England. Yes.
Yeah. There was this crazy time with me and M in Tokyo. M is already like an old ass man.
Yeah.
What did M do in Tokyo? We'll never know.
Yeah. M versus Schmirsch. M took on Schmirsch by himself.
What do you think of Kronstein? By the way, because we've talked about Rosa Klebb, we've talked about not General Gogol, but totally General Gogol. We've talked about Red Grant. The only key antagonist we're missing is the chess man, Kronstein.
Yeah.
Number 5?
Is he number 5?
I think so. Klebb's number 3, isn't she?
She is, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, any thoughts about our mastermind behind this little plot? And here's the cool thing about this. They're just trying to discredit, they're just trying to smear
Schmirsch.
the British espionage. Like that's Spectre's endgame, is just to kill James Bond in retaliation for Dr. No and discredit the British intelligence agencies. That's it's not this huge global thing.
Yeah.
It's something that like it feels like an actual intelligence agency might try to do at some point. Like this guy pissed us off, and he's working for some guys, so we're gonna make them all look bad, and then just keep going about our business.
Like
rather than let's blow up the world for no reason.
Like, could you imagine if they like succeeded, and the CIA's like, oh,
Yeah.
who gives a shit?
Yeah. Here's hotel footage of James Bond boning some chick in a Turkish hotel.
Yeah, nice. Pass it around.
Yeah, this is a pre-internet world. That's how they got to share.
Yeah.
Felix is at the water cooler one day. Did you see the video of James?
Yeah.
007? No, you gotta go see it.
Dude, go in the projection room right now, wind it up for 30 minutes, and watch that shit.
You get to see his shitty back scar.
Yeah. Oh, it's there. Oh, man. Should we talk about the video game?
Oh, yeah. I still have that Xbox
I do
game.
too, yeah. It was fun.
It's okay, even though like Connery sounds
80.
every inch of his years.
Yeah.
Whenever I see Maria Menounos introduce a movie.
I saw her today.
Oh, that's right, because you saw Ghost in the Shell today.
Yeah.
Which you thought
I'm sorry.
was...
Yeah. Very bland.
Very, very bland. Very bland. I didn't actually
Pretty to look at, but very bland.
The last film I saw in theaters, I think, was Kong Skull Island.
F. I hated that movie.
I know you did.
I just have to I have to make it known.
I'd give it a C. I would buy it on $7 for on
$7. They put it on $7. You're like, mine.
Yeah, it's like we're charging $20 for this, sir, but here it is on top of $7.
Yeah,
you don't get to keep the $7.
Yeah, sir, stop trying to give me $7 extra for Kong Skull Island. Just take it. It's free now.
That's how I do it. But
no, but the thing about From Russia with Love, if I remember correctly, the video game is you got to walk around MI6.
Yeah, that was some of the special features.
Cool.
Yeah,
that was
like
kind of
1963 area MI6.
That it was a period piece too. Like they didn't like revamp it.
But every time I see like Maria Menounos introduce a movie, she like blows up in that movie. in that video game, spoilers for like a 10-year-old game at this point, she tries to run you over with a jet, and you literally move out of the way, and she blows up.
Mm-hmm.
Fitting.
There's a lot of weird stuff in that game, though. I mean,
the fact,
you have the random Thunderball jetpack sequence, just to have it, because I guess they figured they knew they weren't going to make the Thunderball game, so they're just like, fuck it, here we go, jetpacks, why not? And then
you hook up with Natasha Bedingfield right after that sequence.
Yeah, and then end of the game. Spoilers for a 10-year-old game. Instead of the climactic fist fight with Red Grant, you fight him in a giant octopus robot.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had lost the rights to, at the time, they didn't have the rights to Spectre. Kevin McClory was still around. And so, instead of being Spectre, you're up against an organization known as Octopus, made literal by the game's climax, where you fight him, like Garrett was saying, in a giant robot octopus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they got the idea for Spectre the movie to have it be an octopus on the ring.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Like they're having the writers meeting. They're like, "Did you guys ever play this game?" And they all at the same time go, "From Russia with Love."
The one thing about that, there's a bonus level at the end, and I remember spending many a sleepless night, like, because Garrett had a copy at the time, or was it Grant that had the copy?
I think it was me.
Okay.
Either way, I have possession of it now. So
yeah,
you win.
I remember there was this like bonus level where you were like Live and Let Die Connery, like you had the turtle. I guess more accurately, Goldfinger Connery. You had the turtleneck and the black pants and everything, and the shoulder holster, and you worked your way up a pyramid thing. And I guess presumably something happened when you got to the top. I could never get to the top.
No one knew. None of us knew what happened when you get to the top. It's just a mystery,
The mystery.
The pyramid just keeps going and going and going.
The great mystery of our time.
Yeah. I really thought the best part of that game though was the multiplayer mode, because you've got like all these great characters from classic Bond. You get to be all the characters, kind of like how the GoldenEye 64 game had like the throwback characters like Oddjob and Jaws and stuff. But so you have like Bond and Red Grant and all these other folks running around, and then Auric Goldfinger, just this like dumpy dude running around with a shotgun. Like, it was infinitely entertaining.
Okay, we'll talk about good old Auric in a second, good old Gert Froba, but do you guys have anything to add before we sign off on From Russia with Love? Don't all jump, Pat.
I mean,
watch this movie right now. That's what I have to add.
If you're a new Bond fan, and you've been watching the more recent things, you go back and do yourself a favor and dedicate 2 hours or so to watching that film. I mean, you don't really need to see, I don't think, Dr. No to understand what's going on in that movie. But I said this on the last show, and I'll say it, I think this is the best of Connery's movies. I think it's better than Thunderball, in part because it's the guy that Fleming put in the book, and it's I think the most, even though the formula's almost set, I think it's probably the most different of all of the movies, because it's just of the pacing and the way that it was shot and the dialogue. It's different, and if you start them from Dr. No and watch them all the way through, you don't get another movie like this until Skyfall.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing to keep in mind is, if you have not seen this before, it is like it was mentioned earlier, it is kind of a slower, more deliberate ride than a lot of the other Bond films, but it is totally worth it. It's an evening where you're going to sit down and watch the film, and probably it's not quite as crazy, outlandish, whatever, but it's a fantastic film. You should totally watch it as soon as you get the chance.
I think, yeah. And again, I think the reason it appeals to the dad in all of us is because
every dad wishes they were James Bond in this movie.
And this is not as, like you guys were saying, it's the most straight they probably play Bond.
Yeah.
No big global plot, no guy with metal hands, no three blind mice.
Oh, shit.
No fire tank.
Oh, yeah, dragon painted fire tank.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Rest in peace,
No
Quarles.
moon rover chase scene.
No. No
Invisible
laser
car.
fights.
Yeah. No space.
Yeah. Roger Moore. But yeah.
No cocaine.
Third nipple.
Nipple. Mr. Scam.
Well, we don't know about that. That's an open question.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this has been another installment. What should we? Okay, while we have everybody on,
Yeah.
what should we call this James Bond program?
Carambe. Agents of Smearsh.
Agents of Smearish. Ah. Am I? No.
Am I?
Boring you? Boys on Bond. No.
Oh yeah, Boys on Bond.
Oh, God.
Boys on Bond. Look who it is, boys.
Boys on Bond.
Yeah.
No, what should we call this?
No more foreplay.
That might be the winner.
I just think of because I think of the fucking GoldenEye trailer.
Oh, which ends.
Say no more foreplay, and I was like 9, and I'd run around the house yelling no more foreplay. My dad's like, you don't know what that means. You can't shout that at strangers. Yeah.
What was the Springsteen lyric as a kid you used to?
Oh well.
The one that like raised eyebrows.
Going off to kill the yellow man. And then also, Bobby said he'd pull out, but Bobby stayed in. Jenny had a baby, wasn't any sin. That was another one I would yell around.
Yeah.
So.
I think I just only had 7th Avenue freeze out.
10th Avenue.
10th Avenue, I was right the first time. God damn it.
You were too early, man.
Yeah. I was a little...
We should call this just 10th Avenue freeze out. They're like, oh, sweet, finally a podcast devoted to my single favorite track of Born to Run. And we're like, Goldfinger. They're like, ah, shit, fuck. How about From Geek Out with Love?
Oh, shit.
That's great.
That's a good
There you
one.
go. Found it.
Yeah, we got a winner. So this has been I can't really call it an inaugural installment of From Geek Out with Love, but just know that it comes from love from all of us.
Carambe.
Smears.
There's only one way to end this episode, and all the episodes. It's from Spectre, and it's Goodbye, James Bond.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday, and you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.